Hey there, Duke fans. DBR Bites, episode number 116, Duke Basketball Roundup. Jason Evans here with you. Now, there's a fairly decent chance that you are listening to this episode either as you're watching or after you're done watching the scrimmage against Central Florida. And you may be like, oh, wow, the DBR got a podcast out so fast about the scrimmage. I can't believe these guys are going to have analysis so quickly. No, sorry. That's not the case. We're recording this before the scrimmage because Duke has gotten a commitment, the first commitment of the class of, I guess it's 2026. Yes, it is. Again, I'm Jason Evans here with you. Donald Wine is on the road. He's very busy. So Scott Rich is joining me at the moment. Scott, the brotherhood grows by one today. How are you doing today, sir, by the way?
I'm enjoying the fact that tonight will be the first real Duke or semi-real Duke basketball game I get to watch as a father. It's a little bit of a weird
Wow.
feeling. And yes, I'm not sure how we feel about exhibition games. I'm calling this more real than the blue-white scrimmage.
For
So
sure.
we'll see how much 4-year-old or 4-month-old Quinn, 4-year-old, Jesus Christ, 4-month-old Quinn does the cheers and whatnot. How much I can train her and start the indoctrination process tonight.
I love it. I love it. All right. So the reason we're here, as I said, we're not going to be talking about the scrimmage. We will, or the exhibition, I should say. Donald and I will be on tomorrow, Wednesday, and give folks a little taste of that. We're here to talk about the fact that Bryson Howard, considered top 15, maybe even top 10 player in the class of 2026, has committed to the Duke Blue Devils. I love the fact that the Duke men's basketball social media account had the another one video all set and ready to roll. They literally, I think they may have actually posted it before Bryson Howard officially made his announcement, or it was like simultaneous.
How did they know, Jason?
Yeah,
How?
shocking, shocking. But in any event, very, very excited to have Bryson Howard coming to Duke. Let me just give folks a little bit of information on him, Scott, and then I'll let you get in. First of all, this is the son of Josh Howard, an absolute legend at Wake Forest, a guy who was an All-ACC first team as a senior. He was, I want to say he was a second team All-American, one of the best players in Wake Forest history. Went on to play in the NBA for a decade, was an all-star in the NBA, and earned well over $40 million in his career that ended a little more than a decade ago, about a dozen years ago or so. So Josh Howard, an incredibly accomplished player. I'll say right off the bat, Scott, that it's got a sting for Wake Forest that like, I mean, this would sort of be like if the Boozers had picked Miami. But even worse though, because at least Duke was there. Like Wake Forest was never in there for this kid. Bryson Howard was like Duke, Kentucky, or UNC. Never even considered his dad's school. That kind of sucks for Wake Forest.
It's especially considering, and we'll talk about this later, Bryson Howard was a little bit of a late riser. He's one of these, stock up over the summer type of guys. That's exactly the type of player you would think that your dad's alma mater would be in on early and maybe have the foot in the door before the Dukes and the Kentuckys and the UNCs of the world catch wind. But who knows? Steve Forbes is building through the transfer portal more often than not. Maybe that's just not his priority.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right, so let's talk about Bryson Howard for a little bit now. Kid's 6'4", 6'5", really solid frame. I've seen him anywhere from 190 to 200, but just when you look at him on tape, you can tell he has a solid frame. He's not someone who's going to be bumped off his spot very easily. He is a lefty, which I think always makes a guy seem a little more crafty, a little more shifty. Left-handed players, you just, as a defender, you're not as used to defending them. He reportedly, I said 6'5", he reportedly has a 7-foot wingspan. Like, wow. I mean, this is partially why, and we're going to talk about this. Kid is an absolute terror on defense, a disruptive defensive player. And by the way, he's young for his class. You talked about him being a late riser. Part of that may be this is a kid, he won't turn 18 until the next summer. He just turned 17 a couple months ago. Lots of kids in his class will be 19 by the time they arrive on campus. Bryce Howard will have just turned 18 when he arrives at Duke next year. And that may be partially why he was this, late rising star. He absolutely exploded over the summer. He was unranked, like literally, like not in the top 150, not in the top 200 coming into the summer. And here we are sitting here today, and he's almost a top 10 prospect. That is super impressive. He opened eyes when he played on the All-Star circuit this summer, EYBL, AAU. Scott, do you know that? Have you seen the numbers?
I saw 45% from three, which is always very exciting.
Yeah, it's actually even better than that. I totaled up his entire AAU summer playing for an elite team, playing for the Pro Skills team, one of the best teams that they won their division at the Peach Jam. He was their best player. He hit 46.2% of his three-pointers.
Even better. That is
What?
greater than 45.
46. And by the way, supposedly as a catch and shoot guy, he's like at 50, like basically, you know, the 46.2 was pulled down because he took some off the dribble. But dude is like, if you put him someplace and you pass to him, he's knocking it down from three. Average close to 20 points per game. Um, I mentioned defensive terror. 2.5 steals per game. He averaged at the AAU level. 2.5 steals per game. Averaged about a block per game. Um, just under 6 rebounds per game, which is okay. Not like a huge number. I wouldn't, you know, I don't think he's going to be an elite rebounder. He mostly, like I said, he plays in the wing. He's a small forward for the most part. But that shooting, that defense, he's a hard worker. He can put the ball on the floor, get to the rack where he finishes really nicely. Now, I will tell you some stuff that he needs to work on, in my opinion. Just looking at the stats, and I've seen some of his games, some of the extended highlights, not just cut highlight kind of stuff. Um, his handle can be a little loose at times. He averaged close to 2 assists. I'm sorry, close to 2 turnovers per game, and only 2 assists per game. Like he had more turnovers than assists. That's something you're going to want to see him work on. Now he's not yet a creative player for the other players around him. Part of that is he's such an elite scorer and such a great shooter that maybe you don't want him passing the ball out that much. But I mean, look, I'm picking nits on a guy who is super long, super athletic, plays with a great motor, and can just drain the ball from the perimeter. Just a dream of a recruit.
You look at a guy who checks the Jon Scheyer recruiting checklist to a T, and it's this kid. As we talked about,
Yeah.
length in with Jon Scheyer values, that 7-foot wingspan you cannot replicate. Positional size, he's a guy who would some of the recruiting sites have him listed as more of a shooting guard than a small forward. It'll be interesting to see how that develops, but a guy who's 6'5"-ish, potentially going to grow a little bit more considering he's not even 18. That's good positional size on the wing. A guy who, like you said, is a plus shooter by all accounts. Those are, I would argue the three things that Jon Scheyer is checking off his list when he makes his wish list recruit. The last thing I would say is we have seen a pattern of Jon Scheyer finding these late riser guys and getting them in the door before other schools pick up on them. We saw Jon Scheyer was in on Kyle Filipowski back when he was a borderline top 100 recruit before he was
Yep.
the number 2 recruit in the class. Jon Scheyer certainly did not swing and miss on Con Knipple, who was a guy when he committed, we all said, huh? And was all of a sudden the number 4 pick in the draft. It's looking more and more like Nick Kamenia might be another one of those guys, a late riser, top 10 to 15 recruit who comes in and has an impact right away. By all accounts, Howard seems like one of those guys and seems to be in that mold. And from my mindset, screw what the recruiting sites say. If Jon Scheyer wanted this guy, and obviously he did if he's the first member of the class of 2026, that's all the endorsement I need in my book. If this is the guy Jon Scheyer was prioritizing and saying, I want you committing first, I want you to be the cornerstone of my class, I think that's the best endorsement we can have given the success he's had on the recruiting trail.
Yeah. And by the way, I don't know that he's going to be the corner. There are guys that Jon Scheyer's in on who are considered better than Bryson
He's the
Howard.
first. He will always be the first.
He will be the first, correct. Yeah. And in fact, I'm thinking of Jordan Smith Jr., who's considered the number 2 player in this class and is also sort of similar to Bryson Howard, super long, one of these defensive wings. I mean, like the prospect of Bryson Howard and Jordan Smith Jr. playing together on the wing, like the defensive terror that they will cause. Unbelievable. I am here for that.
I will say it'll be interesting over the course of his senior year in high school to see whether Bryson Howard is a late riser, instant impact, one and done type guy, or given his youth, if he is more of a multi-year, Isaiah Evans type who impacts the game but needs that second year, particularly given his frame as an 18-year-old kid. Does he need that extra year to grow into his frame? By all accounts, NBA teams will be drooling over a kid with a 7-foot wingspan who can shoot the three. But given his youth, it will be interesting to see what sort of timeline he projects onto. I've got a feeling we'll know that by the end of this year. If a kid has a 7-foot wingspan and shoots 45% from three throughout his senior year, he's going to be a top 5 recruit by the end of this season. He's going to be on NBA draft big boards by the end of his senior year. If that levels out a little bit, maybe he is more of a multi-year Duke guy, that he's in that window where it could go either way depending on how he develops in his last year in high school.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. The final note that I have on this is I just watched Bryson Howard's announcement, and these are the words he spoke. He wasn't prompted in this. No one asked him about it. They said, Bryson, what school are you picking? And he said, for the next couple years, I will be joining the Brotherhood. He said, for the next couple years. This is not a kid who's thinking, I'm going to be one and done. This is a kid who at least initially appears to be planning to spend multiple years in Durham as a member of the Brotherhood. And, as I mentioned at the top, his dad played in the NBA his dad, by the way, played at Wake Forest for 4 years. Josh Howard probably could have gone pro early, but chose to play at Wake Forest for all 4 years and then played more than a decade in the NBA. But the family has plenty of money. There's no rush to get to the NBA to get an NBA riches. I mean, to say nothing of the fact that with NIL now, you can do really, really well in college. But the family doesn't need that NBA money. So if this kid, like you say, young, wants to stick around a little bit longer, to mature a little bit more before he has to face NBA lineups, then boy, the prospect of having this kid for a couple of years, sign me up for that.
And it's fascinating that he said that, because we know that Jon Scheyer talks about this with recruits. We know that Jon Scheyer, maybe sometimes even to a fault, is honest with his guys in outlining his plans for them. If he's saying a couple of years, I would bet money on the fact that Jon Scheyer laid out a plan for him that was a multi-year plan to get him where he needs to go. And that's something that if he came to Duke, he bought into that. I guarantee you there were probably other schools on his radar. I saw he took a visit to Houston. He took a visit to one other, good but not Duke, Kentucky tier school. There are other schools out there who I'm sure could pitch him on, come in, be the star player, be one and done.
Yep.
So it's all evidence that we have, just getting to know this kid, obviously. All evidence that we have indicates that these are the conversations he's having with Scheyer. He seems to be on potentially that multi-year track. But if he blows up and is a lottery pick, something tells me that means he's going to have a very fun year in Duke, and we're going to enjoy that 1 year.
There you go, buddy. All right. We're not even taking a break on this episode. We're just going to plow right through. We're all done. It was an emergency pod, so we got it done quickly. Scott, thanks for joining me so that I had someone to play off of here.
Always happy to. I shall return to getting thrown up on and spit up on for the next 2 hours until the Duke game.
Yeah, well, you hold Quinn tight when you're watching the scrimmage, when you're watching the exhibition tonight. Like I said, Donald and I will be along on Wednesday with our recap of what happened in the Duke scrimmage, in the Duke exhibition against Central Florida and Johnny Dawkins. Until then, he's Scott, I'm Jason, and Bryson Howard is a future Blue Devil. Here's the Duke band playing us out and taking us home.